Assalamualaikum and very good morning, everyone. Alhamdulillah, we are able to be with Ungku Aziz Centre today for the Ungku Aziz Brown Bag Webinar Series 2020. I am Dr. Azma Osman, Senior Lecturer, Department of Development Studies, Faculty of Economics and Administration, Universiti Malaya. A bit about the Ungku Aziz Centre for Development Studies. The Royal Professor Ungku Aziz Chair was established at the Faculty of Economics and Administration to honour the contributions of our Royal Professor Ungku Aziz in the field of poverty and development studies. The Ungku Aziz Centre is created to facilitate the activities of the Chair, and since its establishment, the Centre has undertaken many impactful activities and programs related to the pressing and current development issues in Malaysia. It is the aim to reach out and engage with the public, especially the youth or the young generation of Malaysia. The purpose of this webinar is to provide a platform for Ungku Aziz Centre Research Grant recipients to share their works and ideas on their research findings and development issues which are relevant to the Centre's aim and objective. Today's theme is actually related to the Ungku Aziz Centre 10 research pillars. Please visit Ungku Aziz Centre website, which is at ungkuazizcentre.um.edu.my for more information. The theme of this webinar is based on the second research pillar, which is poverty and sustainable development. That is to understand and search for compatible frameworks between development targets such as economic growth, poverty eradication, the provision of basic needs, employment creation, equity and distribution, while at the same time sustaining the environment for future generation, and also to design appropriate policy measures for social transformation and managing sustainability. Okay, I would like to introduce our speaker today. Our speaker today is Dr. Baskaran Angathevar. He is an associate professor at the Department of Development Studies, Faculty of Economics and Administration, UM. He holds PhD from Sussex University, UK. He used to work at the Middlesex University Business School, London, prior to joining the department in UM. He has many research interests, which includes economics of innovation, national innovation system, innovation and entrepreneurship, among the key ones, I guess. He has published and produced many publications, over 90 publications, including 10 books, 20 books chapters, journal articles. He also had undertaken research projects from various agencies such as UNESCO, OECD, European Commission, and he is editor of many established journals. Without further ado, I think I would like to call upon Dr. Baskaran to present his presentation. The floor is yours, Dr. Bas.
Thank you, Dr. Azma, for your kind introduction and kindly agreeing to chair this session. And I would like to thank Ungku Aziz Centre for Development Studies for funding our research, part of our research on social entrepreneurship in Malaysia. This was a continuation of our previous project funded under UMRG grant. So I will briefly go to what I'm going to talk today. See, the social entrepreneurship landscape in Malaysia is still emerging. And this is a sector, until very recently, was not legally recognized. Social entrepreneurship has been there. It doesn't mean there was no social entrepreneurs in Malaysian landscape. They were operating under various different legal forms. Recently, only in last year, the Ministry of Entrepreneur Development initiated what they call social enterprise accreditation (SEA). It's a national certification to legitimize social enterprises in this country. First batch, 22 SCs were given this certification in January 2020. You can see from there. So one of the major problems facing this sector for a number of years has been the lack of legal recognition. The government agency called Malaysian Global Innovation and Creativity Centre, what we call MAGIC, is the instrumental actor who support the fostering and development of social entrepreneurs in this country. And there was a study in 2008 involving 132 social enterprises and some kind of roundtable. It was done under the British Council, Minister of Entrepreneurship, Development, and UN Escape. They produced some kind of document, but this is not something like a national mapping. So what we are saying here is, on the one hand, government side, they're trying to just grapple with the issue of what is there, how to develop this sector, what's happening, what is the nature of this sector. So they themselves, the last 5 years, they have been making a lot of efforts. So, they started with the blueprint, now with this British Council study, and then the accreditation scheme. So this is what is happening there. The academic side, some people have done some work, mostly reviewing the social entrepreneurship literature, what's happening in this sector, but not much data was used in their writings. So we started exploring what's really the social entrepreneurship landscape by doing some kind of, three-level approach. So what we look at, when you talk about social entrepreneurship in Malaysia, you can look at three ways. Number one, who are the actors or institutions or organizations supporting the creation and development of social enterprises in this country? And second level, what are the characteristics of the social enterprises themselves, and what factors contributing to their social enterprise sustainability? Because I will later explain what is sustainability means and what are the challenges they are faced. And there's another aspect to it. The third level is social enterprises. By definition, their main goal is to develop or make an impact on society, create social value. So what kind of social value they are creating, how it is impacting the three dimensions: society, economic aspect of life, and environmental aspect of life. So these are the things you can see if you want to look at social entrepreneurship in Malaysia. So this is what I'm going to talk about using some of the data we collected from, I'll explain what are the data we collected later. First, when we started this project, there was no definition of social enterprise in Malaysia because there was no legal framework recognizing social entrepreneurship in this country. So what we did at the time, we used the UK government definition, Department of Trade and Industry definition 2004. So the definition is like this: a social enterprise is a business or organization with primary social objectives, which is run on business principles to generate revenues and surpluses, whose surpluses are principally reinvested for that purpose in the business or in the community. rather than being driven by the need to maximize profit for shareholders and owners. In simple terms, social enterprise, their primary aim is not maximization of profit. Their primary aim is to make impact, create social value. So that's the. And now, since 2019, the government issued a guidelines for social enterprise accreditation. So according to these guidelines, they have given a simple definition. A business entity that's registered under any written law in Malaysia. It may be a company, it may be a society, it may be a trust, it may be NGO, whatever may be the legal form, it doesn't matter. They can call themselves as social enterprises. Provided, on what condition? If they proactively create positive social or environmental impact in a way that is financially sustainable. That's the most important thing. They have to create value. That's one aspect, that's the end product, but long term, they are financially sustainable. So I will talk about that, what they mean by financial sustainable. So if you look at in general, what is social entrepreneurship, as I mentioned to you, this is the literature identifies them as a change agents in social sector. These are the sectors which are ignored by the market forces in general, the commercial or the current what we understand by market forces. And they are referred to non-profit organizations to operate business, both to raise revenue and also to enhance their social mission. So this is very important. A social enterprise is almost like a commercial enterprise. First part is same. They operate exactly on business principles. They generate profit. The second part is different. The second part, for example, in a commercial organization, they create profit for the founder or owner or shareholder. In this case, the profit is reinvested in creating social impact or environmental impact or economic impact of livelihood of maybe socially disadvantaged groups. So this is the major difference between commercial enterprise and social enterprise. They are same halfway. For example, they have products, services, they sell it in the market, they generate revenue, but when they are differing is the end product. The goal is to maximize profit for commercial enterprise, and in case of social enterprise, it is to maximize social impact or create social value. So this is the most important difference. But they have to sustain a business entity, a commercial enterprise is sustained by making profit and making, always being in the green. Similarly, a social enterprise is also on the same sustainability principle. They have to generate revenue and make profit to sustain their social impact programs, to sustain their social value creation. That's the main thing when we talk about sustainability. So the value creation, initially they started in double bottom line. Most of the early stage social enterprises across the world, they were focusing on social and economic aspects of life. Later on, they added to it the environment perspective. So this is now called triple bottom line approach. So if you look at the broad conceptual framework we can apply to explore what's happening in Malaysia. So you have three major actors in government sector. They introduce policies and programs like the government sector, like the MAGIC. Now recently they introduced this policy of social enterprise accreditation. And so that's the major role. It's a very important role. There's intermediaries like MAGIC, there are private sector intermediaries, there are some semi-public funded intermediaries. There can be business incubators, accelerators, or some organization which are both social enterprise themselves and also they act as intermediaries. And corporate sector, mostly now big companies are expected to, they are mandatory to produce CSR reporting, corporate social responsibility reporting, and what they are, it's not just making profit for shareholders, they have to also report to the stock exchange and the government what they are doing to support social, economic, and environmental issues. And they also support social sector. This is, when I say social sector, this is social entrepreneurship sector. So you have private actors and activities, government actor activities, and semi-government actor activities. So they all impact on social enterprises, and the social enterprises, by definition, they create impact on society, economic aspects of life, and environmental aspects of life, which we can conceptualize as inclusive growth, sustainable development, and poverty reduction. And on the other hand, the ecosystem also, the social enterprise, they have to work under external environmental conditions. What are they? Funding, investment, access to market, human capital, universities, links with universities, and education and training from different, maybe government run or privately run, mentoring support, and also culture. Entrepreneurial culture is very important. One of the problem in Malaysia is lack of awareness of social entrepreneurship among public and even well-educated people. That's a very important issue they are facing. So if you unpack the social enterprises part, we can expand it to show like this. So when you are talking about social enterprise major characteristics, the most important actor is founder or the entrepreneur and their background and their experience. And then what type of social enterprise they are, typology. What are I will go into that. And also the challenges, sustainability. Remember, one of the important criteria for social enterprise accreditation is sustainability. So what are the major factors enabling sustainability or constraining sustainability? And the ecosystem demands. The market, the finances, access to finance, human capital, culture, the network support, policy by government, these are very important. These are environmental conditions. So this is how we have to look. So we apply this when we study the social enterprises. So what we did was, the first level, we looked at the role and attributes of intermediaries, those agencies, organizations, which are supporting the development of social entrepreneurship in this country. So we interviewed 6 of them: MAGIC, which is the main government agency; Tandemic, which is a private sector agency; My Harapan, which focus on young youth employment and entrepreneurship. They are semi-government. AirAsia Foundation, a private foundation. Pakos Trust is operating in Sabah, which is itself a social enterprise as well as a kind of business incubator. Yayash and Sabah is a government agency operating in Sabah. So we interviewed with them, and then we also interviewed 20 social enterprises from 4 clusters: Klang Valley, Penang, and Sabah and Sarawak. So this is the data we said. We also interviewed, when we interviewed the founders, we also interviewed the social beneficiary, meaning the social enterprise, they aim to create value for society, and what kind of value they are creating. For example, some social enterprise, they run their commercial business in order to create jobs for single women or women from poor household. So we want to know what really the benefit for them. When social enterprise claims, yes, we are doing this, it's fine. But we also want to know whether it's really they're creating value. So we interviewed some of the beneficiaries as well. So the first part, the role of intermediaries. and the nature of them. So we can call them in different category. There's no, we call it mostly intermediaries, but some of them are business incubators, some of them are accelerators. Accelerator means you have a firm, but you are trying to grow. So you go into the accelerator program and then you help get support to grow further. So these are all different intermediaries. So Tandemic and Pakostas we can describe as incubators. Magic and IS and Sabah, they are government organization, they are like more like accelerators. AirAsia Foundation and Mayharapan, they are more intermediaries. So I as already mentioned to you, Tandemic and Pakostas and Mayharapan, they are themselves social enterprises. So what they do, most of them, they provide various training activities. They run workshops for potential or existing social enterprises. And most importantly, some of them, they also provide market intelligence, but we found that's not the core activity they are doing at the moment. Maybe since we interviewed them, they have improved on that. Another thing, important thing they do is mentoring. Mostly when they select social enterprises for supporting, they provide, one of the issue here is they need mentoring support. This is the most important, I think, even now Magic has a separate program for mentoring the young enterprises. The problem is they're not well organized and implemented, but they have, at the time we could see, they have this conceptualization that this is very important. Social network is important, mentoring is important, not just giving money, supporting them with the workshop or training. They have these ideas already, they were well recognized. What is important, another problem we found is there is no performance measurement. When we go and interview them, they say we are supporting single women and we are supporting young children from public schools. We are supporting teachers from public school through this program, that program. But when we ask for statistics, they don't have. One reason could be because they are all very young. They are trying to survive. Their most important urgent need is survival. So they have not yet reached that stage of performance measurement system. That's the kind of thing we understood at the time. And the social sector is a mix of, as I mentioned to you, both public and private funded actors. And the Magic is the main actor national level. They are funded directly by the federal government, and they are the nodal agency for this sector. So they have very strong links with various ministries, departments, and different national agencies, both at state level and national level. What happened as before Magic emerged, there was other kind of intermediaries like Social Entrepreneurship Alliance, for example. And so this, because the space is very small for too many players. So some of the intermediaries like Scope, Tandemic, Social Entrepreneurship Alliances, their activities shrunk. Magic became the leading actor. And that could be, maybe the reason is that this is still not well organized sector, and there's a lack of legal recognition for the sector. So, but then Tandemic started working with Magic, and they are involved in national surveys and kind of they share, I think, their space. So this is what we have seen in the intermediary landscape, what is happening there. So in terms of what they do, for example, they select social enterprises and they provide various supports, as I mentioned earlier. So they have a selection process. They can't just allow anybody. So for example, in Mayharapan, they have only 16 to 30 years old founders with ideas or with the early stage entrepreneurs. And they provide them various supports, including seed funding. And A Foundation is very stringent in their selection process. So they go through 2 or 3 levels of criteria they have to meet. And also A Foundation, also the region, ASEAN region, not just in Malaysia. So like this, they have a selection criteria, and then they do funding. The funding can be seed funding or accelerator funding. In case of Magic, they provide both seed funding and accelerator. For example, they have Amplify Awards, which is an accelerator program, and the seed funding is 30K to that's very small amount of money. But then they also do monitoring and so on. So they have this funding, seed funding and growth funding. For example, My Harapan, they are trying to create a social enterprise venture fund for startups at the time when we spoke to them. And they also had Youth Action Grant for developing prototype, which is a kind of seed funding. And the Tandemic is different because it's a private sector organization. They used to bring in, and they develop in-house, and they supported. And now they moved on more into social innovation rather than incubation. Market intelligence, as I mentioned, they had this clear idea. They must help when you want them to be sustainable. If you want social enterprises to be sustainable, the most important thing is they have to raise revenue. How they can raise revenue? By access to market. So that's where they have difficulty. So that's the requirement, and for most important problem was well recognized when we spoke to these various intermediaries, and they had at the time some program, but at the moment the Magic has improved on their market intelligence program. AA Foundation was the best at the time because they had, for example, they had access to their own operations in Thailand. They can draw lessons from Thailand because Thailand has a much more matured social entrepreneurship landscape. So as I mentioned, the most important other issue was the mentoring, not just giving money to set up, providing marketing, mentoring, hand-holding. That all these intermediaries, they have been doing those kind of things. And now Magic has a very full-fledged mentoring program in the last 2 years. Monitoring is difficult. So they had monitored during the period of their, for example, if they have been there for 12 months under their program, those period they monitor. But post incubation or post support period, the monitoring was not that robust. So in Tandemic, they don't monitor because it's internal, everything. So there's no need to have separate monitoring. AA Foundation, they used to have every 6 months, they have visiting and re-evaluation, and they have some sort of monitoring system. So they were following some monitoring system, but during the period of support, they did, but after the period, sometime it's not. So the assessment of outcome of the program, they all had some kind of assessment. So they followed this their own assessment, how to assess their programs. For example, Tandemic, they have different project. They measure differently different project. There's no single uniform assessment. And they're not based on, so it's not like incubation period. For example, social enterprise is incubated for 2 years. It's not for the 2 years. They have to meet milestones. So that's the assessment in there. So they have different criteria like this. Okay, the overall, we captured what their projects, activities. So you can see here, the Tandemic, they provide training, consultancy, incubation. They have specific projects called Make Weekends, bridging workshops, and they have a program for human trafficking, And there is a database called Social Enterprise Database. They have completed it, but then they stopped it because of the magic. Now I think they are working with magic on those kind of things. AF Foundation is much more well structured. They have funding, workshops, mentoring, facilitating market space. They have programs called annual destination, good events. They have different programs for different countries in ASEAN. My Harapan, similarly, they have workshop boot camps, roadshows, project management, coaching, mentoring. They have specific projects called social business challenging competition, nationwide roadshows, and so on. So they have more or less kind of support for training, workshop, mentoring, some kind of seed funding or accelerator funding. So these are the common activities they carry out. That makes sense anyway. So this is the first part we did. So we published a paper on this from I think our interviews with the intermediaries. The second part, which I shown in the second diagram in the conceptual framework, is major characteristics of social enterprises. What the founders, who are the founders? How old are they? What is their background? What is the social impact they're creating? What is the business model? What is the sustainability model? You know, all those characteristics we try to understand and map. So this is the 20, you can see here, they are from 4 different clusters, the 20 social enterprises, and the location, the second, third column, and the year of establishment. Most of them are very, less than 10 years old. Some of them, so we found most of the founders are between 30 to 40 years old. Very few young graduates, they go and set up social enterprise. A lot of them, they had, their the education background, you can see some of them MBA, they have accounting background, education, or masters in gender development studies, PhD. So very well educated people. And then they have experience. A lot of them, they came to social sector before that. They worked in either companies, governments, or NGOs. They had very good experience in finance and business consultancy and so on. You can see in the last column, you can see manufacturing and education experience, banker, IT consultant, and there are only 2 or 3 fresh graduates. And then you can see here somebody environmental lobbyist, somebody worked in tourism manufacturing consultancy, NGOs, business consultant, corporate accounting, corporate banking, entrepreneurial, IT. So you can see that's very important. When we talk about sustainability, one of the things we found is the founder's background matters, because that enables them to run the social enterprise on commercial lines and make it sustainable and create whatever value they have aimed to create. So this is the most important. A lot of them are very young firms, after 2014, 15, at least after 2011, they were established. So this is the basic profile we found. And then we go into the typology. What is the nature of their business model? For example, you can see here, the first, third column, development area, where is their social value creation, which area they want to create social value. So APE Malaysia is an environmental organization. So this biodiversity conservation. 100 projects is education development. They provide education support to public school teachers and the public school students. They fund their projects in schools and provide facilities and maybe material. So Aris Academy, same thing in education development. Tony Bang is a very interesting case. This guy is an engineer. He provides mini hydroelectric plants. He puts up in remote parts of Sabah. I personally went to the village. It's a very remote part of the country, and I saw how they operate this power station. They have workshop in the town. They educate the young village people. Maybe they are school dropouts. They give them technical training, how to maintain generator, and how to maintain day-to-day operations. And they provide electricity because there is no main grid reaching these small villages, remote part of Sabah. And it's very interesting, how he did it using. Sometimes they fabricate the turbine from all these beer cans and all those aluminum cans we throw. They use it. He has a friend who does the smeltering, and then they develop turbine for the driving, the hydroelectric power. So it's a very interesting case. He is the environmental conservation, also providing, electricity, which is renewable energy. BGBG is urban-based. They use all these banners you see sometime in the street and all they throw. So they create bags and they provide employment for single women or very poor background women, and they market it, in open market. They are very successful business. So later on in Leaderonomics, they provide the kind of skills development for young people. They call it future leaders of the business world or government organizations. So like this, they have a different focus and different areas, which we call three bottom line: social, economic, and environment. So you can see that column shows that. Of course, the traditional sector they operate: tourism, education, infrastructure, corporate, and public relations. And where they operate, rural or urban. So we identified a lot of them operate both in rural areas and urban areas, and some of them only in rural areas and urban areas. And what are their beneficiaries? Who they want to benefit? The first one is environmental, this one. So naturally, it's wildlife and so on. So we mapped it like this on mission orientation: mission-centric, mission-related, and mission-unrelated. Mission-centric means their commercial operation and the social impact is under one legal entity. If it is unrelated, they have both commercial operation and social programs, but they operate under separate legal entities. And sometimes you have mission-related, that means they operate in one legal entity, but separately within the same legal entity. So we have created this typology of business models and all, and we mapped it. So let's go to the impact. What kind of impact they are creating? So Hunter Project, for example, they provide support. Public school, they don't have facilities. Maybe they don't have lab or computer, projector. So this 100% project, they cater for that kind of thing. So they support public school education system. And agro trainer, they provide jobs for women in rural community, and they encourage them to produce products which they can access in the market. For example, they encourage women to produce pickles in bottles, so they can market it for them. They even market it in some farmers market, not only farmers market, in mainstream market. So you can see here, most of them, some of them working in ecotourism, they create jobs, and they also do environmental conservation. And some of them are in urban settings, they create jobs. For example, the DIBS coffee, it's business cafe chain operated in business model like Costa Cafe or something, but employs only young people with hearing impairment, deaf people. So they train them, they provide jobs. And this is a pure business operation, as like McDonald's or Costa Cafe. And the hot treasures is, we went there in Sarawak. This is the lot of mentally challenged children, even adult like 15, 16-year-olds up to 20 years old. They are taught how to make, for example, jewelry, how to make artifacts, which can be sold. Okay. So this is the impact side. Okay. So we clearly mapped some impact, but when we ask them to give statistics, it's not possible for them. They don't have exactly how many children benefited, how many women benefited. Those kind of things we found. So the market type we found, you have, what is the market? There are market like directly business to consumer, business to business, business to government. We found the social enterprises, most of them are in the niche market where they are the only operators or only few people operating. You can see here the niche market. And then the last column you can see, there's also a lot of them, they operate in combination of business to business, business to consumer, business to government market. So this is very interesting. Of course, in the open competition market, you can see very few tick marks. There are only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of 20. So, but that's also a big number. Out of 25 competing in open market, a social enterprise, it's very commendable. I find it very interesting. And the source of finance, you can see here, they have magic, they provide some finance. And also, you can see there are grants, so seed funding. There's a lot of seed funding has been accessed by these, most of the social enterprise we interviewed, apparently they got some seed funding. And the grants also, there are certain grants they have access. So the finance access is pretty, I think, very significant. It's not like they don't have access to finance. They do have. So sources of finance we found very different perception. The intermediaries, they said a lot of businesses fail, social enterprises fail, lack of financing. But on the other hand, what we found from social enterprises, a lot of them, they didn't feel finance, access to finance is a major problem. Non-financial issues, they highlighted as challenges. So sustainability is, as we said, is the most important criteria. There are two important criteria for social enterprises to get accreditation in Malaysia. One is they must have clear social impact, mission in their business model. The second, they must be sustainable. So what are the challenges in sustainable? We identified some factors, sustainable factors. Maybe I'll just summarize, of course it is mapped in this table, but maybe I'll just summarize. The factors contributing to sustainability, there are two major factors. One, the skills and past experience of the founders and the employees, or sometimes they are jointly run by 2 or 3 people, complementing each other's skills. We found this very interesting. Whenever they have such a team, they're very successful. And people from previous experience, industry experience, NGO experience, they were able to do very well. The other critical sustainability factor is market opportunities and external support. So this is where the intermediaries are very important. The challenges, what are the major challenges? Marketing, as I mentioned to you, most important. Retaining the beneficiaries. Sometimes beneficiaries, like their employees, they move off, or they lack of trust, they leave. So there are some problems. And lack of public awareness. social entrepreneurship is still emerging. A lot of people, they don't understand it, and they think it's just an NGO, it's a kind of non-profit organization. They are not. They're not non-profit. Yes, they are non-profit, but they are not operated on donation. They have to work for themselves. They have to create value for themselves. They have to generate revenue for themselves. So this is a problem. There is a lack of public awareness, and that's where the government is also trying to do with the different ways. Lack of access to resources. Resources does not mean financial resources. It's also human resources, because some people are telling that they have difficulty in attracting talented young people to work for them, something like that. So lack of product development. Yes, for example, I told you, so there is a Paco Trust, for example, in Sabah. They are encouraging every village to produce one product, mostly women. And they are unable to sell other than farmers market. And I was explaining to her, why don't you try to use e-platform? So this is some of the things, even the magic they can come up with, creating a dedicated e-platform for this kind of product. Retaining voluntary workers, because most of them employ volunteers because they can't afford to pay salary. Sometimes also they use interns. So how to retain them? That's a challenge. So I completed most of the major issues. Let me go to, of course, the perception and all. I don't want to cover. You can share this. So how many minutes I have? 5 minutes. Okay. Let me conclude. So social enterprise in enterprise landscape is still developing and emerging. You can see the most important problem affecting this sector is the lack of legal framework. Now the government introduced this framework. Only 22, you can see from this year, there were only first batch of 22 social enterprises given this accreditation. But the study by British Council, they used the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor formula to estimate how many social enterprises might be in Malaysia. They think it's 2,000. No, sorry, 20,000. 20,000. Okay. Of course, they surveyed only 132 social enterprises, but they used some estimation technique used by GEM to come at this figure, 20,000. So 22 and 20,000, you can imagine where we are. Yeah. So if you want to bring this vibrant sector into a legal framework, there's a lot of things need to be done. So most social enterprise, they started informally first on personal initiative. Eventually, they become formal organization. That's the process they go through. A lot of them operate in education, poverty, rural development, environmental sustainability, ecotourism, social economic development of marginalized groups and youth at risk. These are the areas commonly you find social entrepreneurs. So it makes sense. The literature says mostly social entrepreneurs, they operate in areas where the traditional market ignores. So you can see from that. And most of these organizations are hybrid organizations because legally they cannot have both, in one legal organization. So sometimes they have one legal entity generating revenue, another legal entity providing social service or impact. BIs, the business incubator and intermediaries, are a mixed bunch, as I already explained. They're from government and private sector. Most enterprises, they face different challenges and sustainability needs. It's a very diverse. It's very challenging for policymakers, even for MAGIC. So this is the most important challenge they have to figure out: how to, understand this diversity, how to come up with some sort of common approach to help them to face the different challenges and problems. Of course, the access to funding and social capital is the most important factors for survival. What we found, a lot of NGOs, they're trying to move to social sector. There are a few reasons. Number one, Malaysia has become a middle income country, so donors are not willing to invest in Malaysian NGOs. And on top of it, NGOs become old model. So they are unable to attract young talents. So they are trying to go into a new, social sector where they can do what they have been doing as NGOs, but still they can become, it's a kind of new branding. Yeah. So this is where probably Magic can also help. But I think the current SC accreditation scheme addresses this issue. The one problem from my perspective, because the big picture is missing. Social sector is not very well linked to regional development or national integration, national innovation system development. So this linkage is weak linkages is missing. So we made some. This are only few recommendations. We come up with the policy brief. I'm working with Dr. Chandran how to get it out to the policy arena. So few recommendations. Of course, the good thing is the legal framework initiative is done now. But the important thing is the gap between reality and, we have recognized social enterprise 22 and estimated enterprise out there 20,000. So how to accelerate this legal formal process? So that's a challenge for government now. And then you have, intermediaries. They need to come up with more innovative services, and of course, some of them they realize at the time of we interviewed them, they were aware of that. A lot of their programs we have seen seed funding, early stage support. So the matured, the growth-oriented firms also need support at that stage. Okay, so those kind of growth stage support is needed and to be designed by the intermediaries and business incubators. The Magic is the lead actor, and probably they can take the most important approach should be multi-stakeholder engagement. See, now you have corporate sector, which is, they have corporate social responsibility funds. They can spend it in the social sector, but that connection is not there. The link is missing. How to enable this corporate sector funding to come into social sector? So this is where probably Magic has to think creatively and bring. So the link with universities, finally, because we are from university. It is very important. This is the most important sector which has high potential to address poverty reduction, to address environmental issues on the ground. So where universities should be linked to this sector very robustly. We should run programs, maybe whole degree programs on social entrepreneurship, or we have to embed courses in all the entrepreneurship courses, business courses. So this is very important. Also, we should link with the social enterprise sector and the intermediaries of the social enterprise sector. So these are the things I would say need to be urgently done in the policy thing. Of course, I will finish it. Let us, because we have reached the time. Thank you for all your attention. So now let's open for question and answer session.
Thank you very much, Dr. Baskaran, for a very, very interesting and informative presentation. Yeah, now we are in the Q&A session.
Yeah, I will just show you a few documents I just want to share just quickly.
Yeah.
Are you opening it? Okay. Just so, for information.
Yeah.
So this is the document. In 2019, the government has come up with the Social Enterprise Accreditation SCA guidelines. So they started asking social enterprise to apply for this accreditation. So the first batch, 22 social enterprise were awarded. They say there is another 40 or 40 plus number is being considered now. So this is the most important development in the sector. And then the other one is the state of social enterprise in Malaysia is the joint study conducted by British Council. Can you, Shikran, can you please show the other document? Next one, next one. Yeah, this is the study by the British Council and UN Escape and ISN Sub Asana and the Ministry, the Ministry of Entrepreneurial Development. So this is a very interesting thing. This is the one they use the gem estimation technique to understand how many could be out there. So they identified, of course, their study is very small. They interviewed 132 and they did a round table. But this is an important development. I think British Council is very active, and even we bidded for their one of the funding, but they didn't award. Maybe we asked for more money, so they gave it to somebody else. So the other one is our first paper. Can you show the other paper? The one we did on intermediaries. So this is we published a paper on social business incubator intermediaries in Malaysia. The next paper is focused mainly on social enterprises. So we are also trying to bring out a book. Unfortunately, the MCO is constrained. We need more cases. The 20 is not enough for a book because they are not long. So we need another 20. So we are working on it. Okay, now let's go for question answer.
All the best to you, Dr. Baskaran. Thank you so much for the information. Now, in the Q&A session, I'll be taking questions from the participants.
Yeah.
Right. The first question from Anonymous. How many young people has Magic produced to be successful in generating the economic growth? What happened to those entrepreneurs who did not make it to be successful?
So this is one of the issue I identified during my presentation. The performance measurement is missing in the sector, including Magic. So if you go on into okay, they are doing a lot of good things. You should not disagree with that issue. They have probably their own constraint, their budget and all. So, but at least I agree with this question. They should have statistics of how many seed funding. Of course, they have funding. They have statistics, but the number of they just say, oh, this many attended our workshop. This many, but there's no really evidence-based kind of thing for how many were successful, how many unsuccessful. That is not there. It's missing. Not only in Magic, across the sector. Across the sector.
Follow up and
yeah. Yes. Yes. This is one of the issue we even talk to them. You must develop this because when you claim you are making a social impact, the first thing anybody is going to ask you is, where is the measurement? What kind of impact you made? You let us know how many people benefited. If you created employment, how many you created employment? Full-time, part-time, volunteer. So some statistics, yes. So unfortunately, they don't have. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Bas. The second question is from Hilmi. Following the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic, unemployment rate is rising globally, mainly for working class groups. What is your view on the socio-economic impact of social entrepreneurship in responding to the pandemic and also creating opportunity to unemployed society?
I think the social enterprise have a great role to play in this because this is very serious on the ground. But the problem is the government, as I mentioned to you, this sector is not legally recognized until recently. And the government assistance program at the moment is for general SME sector. So I'm not sure how this really can, because even the general SME sector, firms or some of the, I read some reports, I'm not, but they feel it's not easy to access some of the assistance. So yes, they can play a major role in mitigating some of the ill effects of COVID-19 in the sector. But the problem is, if you are talking about where the government support is reaching them, that's questionable. It's very for basic problems like legal recognition and also only 22 enterprises are now legally accredited. So this is a challenging area where probably government has to, or magic, to come up with some kind of measure.
But I think you did show in your presentation that many of the social enterprise did provide employment opportunities.
Yeah, they're still doing it. I think they continue. I'm not. I don't think they. The only problem is when they have a complete lockdown. Probably they like any other firm, they close down as well. So but we don't have the hard facts. But my feeling is they continue to employ them.
Yeah, most important, the social enterprise that employ those who are with handicap.
Yes,
definitely.
People. Yeah, I feel they continue to employ them.
Disabled
they
persons.
Generally, because those firms which we personally interviewed them, their business model, it's not like the other. They just shut down and they let the workers go. They're very different business models.
I think that is very important. Okay, third question is from Ed. May I know if social enterprises pay dividends to its stakeholders? Is Malaysian social enterprise model same as Muhammad Yunus social business framework? I think the Grameen Bank.
No, this is different. See, this is very diverse. So some of this are very, it's run by two founders, for example. They don't have shareholders or stakeholders. Stakeholders meaning, of course, beneficiary, government, magic intermediaries. They are there. But you see, they are not operating the revenue sustainability for the programs they run, social programs. It's not for profit or dividend. That question doesn't arise at all. And most of them are they're trying to cope and survive.
The benefit is in kind, not just
they
monetary
probably
benefit.
They get their salary or whatever, but mostly these are not profit making. Already a lot of them are just managing to survive.
Security is also another.
That's why the sustainability issue is a major issue which the government put in the condition to become accredited.
Security of jobs. Okay, thank you, Dr. Bas. Next is question from Titi. Does social enterprise courses in universities sufficiently prepare graduates who wish to explore social enterprise as their career as well as being a change agent for SDGs?
Okay. See, this is a problem. Yes, on Tuesday, I was interviewing for another project. He's the president of the Rubber Glove Manufacturing Association, and he's also a CEO of a company. He was telling, okay, government has set up, of course, SDGs were published in 2015. Government has incorporated SDGs into government policies. Now, for example, if you want to see the small, medium enterprises reporting their environmental activities, how you are going to audit them? Who is going to do this, first of all? So you don't have the basic human capital. You need human capital. The universities, they need to generate people who have the knowledge and skills with the SDGs and implementation of SDGs, measuring SDG impacts and so on. So we must have, you must have SDG dedicated programs at undergraduate level and postgraduate level, at least undergraduate level. So this is an issue. It's a major issue. So this is it is not there yet. It's not there yet. So the government runs awareness training, workshop. That's it. But when you want to make an impact in the industry, you need human resources. You need skills, talented people doing that. So that's where the universities need to come up with programs to do this kind of requirement.
I agree with you. Okay. Following question is from one of our PhD candidate. His question is, related to this knowledge what we are lacking in Malaysia in this as a context for quite a long time. My questions, the question are first, some countries with more mature social enterprise landscape, they have their own legal framework for their social enterprise to differentiate social enterprise from conventional business entities and also NGOs. Based on your knowledge, would you think having a specific legal act for SEs in Malaysia is important when we already have the SE accreditation?
No, the SC accreditation is a legal framework. It's a legal framework. Just now, the government has introduced this. They call it accreditation because what they say, whether you may be already registered as NGO, you may be already registered as company, you may be already registered as society. As long as you fulfill these three criteria, you have a social impact, sustainability, and then you can call yourself social enterprise. So this is a legal framework.
So another legal entity is not needed?
No.
Shukran, can we go back to the previous question because I haven't finished.
So this is the kind of creative way Malaysia has come up to address this problem of lack of legal framework. So because they already the legal entities are diverse. Currently, a lot of social enterprise, they are NGOs, they are so registered societies, they are registered companies. So how to bring them, instead of making separate social entrepreneurs in the Company Act, probably they have come up with this compromise.
So there's no need special legal act.
Yes. They have come up with this framework as a compromise and to facilitate the existing legal entities to become social entrepreneurs, call themselves a social enterprise.
The second question is, why are neighboring countries like Singapore and Thailand have better ecosystem for SEs compared to Malaysia?
I think
it's a difficult question to answer.
No, this is a government, because ecosystem, the broader national policy is important. So I think especially Thailand, they have been, government has been promoting it for a long time compared to Malaysia. Malaysia probably this was done later.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Bas. Another question from Prof. Terence. Can social enterprise make a profit and do social good in a sustained manner? One goal surely will have to be compromised, and if it is profit, the enterprise will
I won't call
be
it profit. Profit is not the term, it's revenue. So you need to have commercial revenue because profit is the end product. So profit is the end product which is goes to the founder or shareholder. In social enterprise, they have to generate enough revenue to sustain the business operation, the cost of running a business, and then whatever is the surplus, you have to use for social impact programs. So you just for understanding, we mentioned profit. They are not making profit. The surplus, we call it surplus. So the first part is for meeting the cost of running the business operation. Second, if you have a surplus, which you normally associate with profit in the commercial firm, now that surplus is going for funding social programs, or whatever impact program. It may be environmental program, social program, or socio-economic program.
The aim is for social impact. However, this revenue must be enough.
We are mentioning profit just for understanding, but you can't use the word profit in social enterprise.
All right. No. Okay. Thank you. Following this is question from Jackie. How could we shift from supply-driven to need-driven for SEs? Which one is important for different phase of SEs? And then the second question is from plot to regional, political plot to regional or more widened level, what is the biggest challenge for
I
SEs?
think it's mostly need driven. When people set up, you see, the whole concept of social enterprise is
Yeah.
you identify a social environmental need which is not fulfilled by the conventional market forces. Then you try to fulfill the gap there. That's the fundamental of social enterprise. So it is need driven first place.
Need driven, yes.
It's need driven firstly. It's not supply driven.
Yeah,
You
the
don't just
society-
try to create something and try to find a beneficiary.
Yeah.
You just identify what is the need in the society which is
Yeah.
not fulfilled by the
Right.
current market conditions. Then you go into operate.
Into operation.
So
Yeah.
this is mostly need driven already.
Yeah. Second question.
The second question, I'm not sure what he is asking.
Political plot to
What is the biggest
regional-
challenge? I'm not sure, Jackie. I'm sorry.
Question number 3 is
Intermediates are very
intermediates.
crucial. So,
So-
what type of intermediates play leading role? Government, SCs themselves. Okay. So here you see this ecosystem. You can't say intermediary is the most important. The founders of social enterprise is the most important. Government is. Everybody has a distinct role.
Yes.
They have their own role to play.
Yes.
So this is why we call it ecosystem, multi-stakeholder concept.
Right.
So it's not one is the bigger than the other, one is more critical than the other one less critical. Everyone, for example, magic, it has a role to play. For example, magic, I'm sure, played a very major role in bringing together how to implement this problem of legal frameworks.
Right.
So they use the British Council. No, that's where multi-stakeholder is important.
Yes.
They found international organization to collaborate, to enable, their wisdom and experience. And they also use the private sector actor like Tandemic, Myharam, these kind of guys. So this is not one particular actor is being more critical than the other.
Right. Okay, I think time is up for question and answers. Thank you very much,
Thank you,
Dr.
Dr.
Baskaran, for giving
Thank you for
answers.
all
Yes,
questions. It's really
and
very
answers.
interesting questions.
Right.
Of course, the Singapore one, they're well developed. Singapore is a,
Yeah.
it's
They
not
have-
comparable with the, of
Yeah.
course, Thailand is comparable with Malaysia.
Maybe, or Indonesia
so
even.
I don't
Yeah.
feel I didn't answer it.
Am I allowed to read this question?
Yeah.
The question is, SEs got seed fund and even angel investment, but since SEs usually don't generate enough revenue and profits, does that mean they cannot raise more fund in the future? If they don't have enough fund support, how can they keep on growing? This is from Hi.
Yeah.
Ihai?
So they see the seed funding and the angel investment is very limited. It's not unlike seed funding and some like amplifier funding, which is accelerator funding. See. So far, I have come up with the firms are very confident of sustaining themselves.
Right. Yeah.
The funding, of course, the legal framework itself will enable them market access to funding, because this is one of the issue which is constraining them accessing funding. For example, CSR funding. NGOs, companies are not allowed to access CSR. CSR funding should go only for NGOs. By definition, it's a donation. So if you are operating a social enterprise on commercial principles, you are buying and selling or producing and selling, you are not allowed to use CSR funding. Okay, now the accreditation will open the door. The big companies, if they want to invest in social programs, they can go to social enterprise, which is registered as a company itself. So this kind of issues, resolves itself by unlocking this legal door.
Right. Yeah. Okay. That is all. Shukran. Okay. So my task is also to wrap up the session. So from what we have listened in the presentation, what I can say is social enterprise is indeed very crucial in attaining inclusive growth for Malaysia, and social enterprise had already played a significant role in reducing poverty and inequality between rural and urban communities in Malaysia. They may need to do more. However, Malaysia's social enterprise do face challenges and are in need for sustainable needs, depending on the market they serve and sectors that they operate and the professional backgrounds of their founders. I see also that there is an urgent need for solving the missing link between the corporate sector, the government, the universities, probably a better partnership between all need to be fostered for the sake of the social enterprise development. I think that finishes the session for today, and I hope everybody has benefited from the presentation and the research done by Professor Dr. Baskaran and his team. What I would like to say is please stay tuned to our next webinar session, which will be announced in progress. And until we meet again, please break the COVID-19 chain and try as hard as we can to flatten the curve and stay safe, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dr. Azma, and thank you all for your time attending and participating and asking questions. I hope you all benefited from our webinar today. Thank you so much.
I'm sure they will benefit. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks. Very good.